Hi, everybody. Today we're going to talk about the evolution of women in sport seen through my career. Welcome back to the Richardson Show. When I look back at my career and even in the present, it reminds me about the changes that I've seen so much with girls and women in sport. And I know that I am not going to be able to even scratch the surface of the evolution, but I thought it'd be fun to share a little bit of it with you. Well, I remember looking back, I talked to you about being on the Union Park Jets. Do you know that we wore black kangaroo cleats? Yes, kangaroo leather cleats. I remember seeing the first white pair of cleats ever in our sport, a fast pitch softball. And it was a left fielder for the Sun City Saints. She was so fast, and I knew it was because she had the white pair of cleats. So I couldn't wait to get them. What else do I remember? I saw the last wooden bat ever to be used in a national championship for the women's major level. It was amazing. When I look at it using aluminum bats back at that time, I also remember when you talk about the evolution of women in sport, and I touched on this a little bit, when Billie Jean King was challenged by Bobby Riggs in a tennis match, and it was called the Battle of the Sexes. And I remember that so clearly because I was sitting there on the edge of the couch just praying that Billie would win so that we girls would have more opportunity to play. I also remember looking back at just the opportunity to be able to finally play when that same day I would have had to disguise myself as a boy in order to play baseball, a sport that I loved and was actually pretty good at. But 30 minutes later, the Union Park Jets, fast pitch softball, just started rising through the game. And at 13 years of age, when I was with the Orlando Rebels, the youngest to play on a women's major team, when I remember that and the aluminum bats, you guys know that the whole team had 5 bats. That's it. We had what was called a bat bag. We didn't have each of us our own single bat. I think that is so funny when you look back at it. But boy, it was amazing to think at what we had back then and what is there now. So let's talk about that. When Billie Jean King started the Professional Tennis League, I remember that. It was a tennis tour. And I was a part of, in a small way, of recognizing the first ever professional league that we had, that Billie Jean King and Joan Joyce came together to use the experience of the tour model with tennis to bring it in to softball. You guys, when I played in the women's major level, the Orlando Rebels, the Rebestos Breakettes, I'm telling you, the fans were amazing. It was packed. We were on the front page of the sports page. It was incredible. It was awesome. It was so awesome. But I also remember the first time ever that there were world championships in our sport. I remember the first ever league that I talked about that Billie Jean King and Joan Joyce that I just mentioned. I actually remember that because I was 15 and I was drafted to the Connecticut Falcons. And I decided not to play professional because one of my dreams had always been to be an Olympian. And at that time, you could not be a professional athlete. The other is they just started giving out college scholarships for women. And I wanted to get my scholarship so I could afford to go to college. It's funny because now we look at college and a lot of us, we can't wait. We can't wait to play college sports, right? But for me, I couldn't wait to play women's major ball in the summer because that was the most competitive. And that's why I pray the future holds even stronger leagues that can sustain themselves at a professional level. So every young girl can dream about being a professional fast pitch softball player. And it looks like there's a huge rise as what's happening at the pro level. The other is those first scholarships. Man, I wanted one. But I wasn't focused only on scholarships. You know what I was focused on? Just loving the opportunity to be able to compete. I shared with you that in high school, I played volleyball, basketball, softball, track and field, and tennis, and I loved them all. But as I give a summary of certain things that I saw, like the first Pan American Games ever offered to our sport, the first NCAA championships ever offered in our sport to women, to be a part of that when I was at UCLA, the first Olympic Games, I want to take you back and let's go through a little bit of it. When I was a young girl, would I disguise myself as a boy in order to play? Thank goodness I didn't give in to that. I had an opportunity to play softball with the Union Park Jets, then the Orlando Rebels, and in the future, the Rebecca's Broquettes and the California Commotions eventually. In sixth grade, you guys, I remember my dream was to be an Olympian. And I can't wait for the episode when we're going to talk about the Olympics and the Olympic dream. But we were having a field day, they called it. And I was the last standing for the long jump. And I'll never forget the PE teacher saying, well, Dot, if you can make this jump, I will make sure you're in the Olympics. Are you kidding me? Did he know that I wanted to be an Olympian? I'll never forget as I took off that left leg of mine and I'm in the air and I'm just striving so far to put my feet beyond that rope. And they were, but I slipped. And when I hit the ground, I was like, does that mean I'm not going to be an Olympian? No, it's got to happen. So in seventh grade, you guys, there were no women's sports. There were no girls' sports. So in junior high, I was on the boys' track and field team. And there were a few other girls that also were athletic, but it just didn't seem right. Then in eighth grade, it happened. We had girls' sports, and I played volleyball, I played basketball, I played softball, track and field. I mean, I was living the dream. Ninth grade, same thing. But this is a moment I want to share with you about the evolution of women in sport. It was awards night, and there were boys and there were girls and their families, and always the most outstanding athlete always went to a boy, except this night. There I was at the table, my parents with me, and in front of me was most valuable player for volleyball. Then the trophy for most valuable player for basketball. Then the trophy for most valuable player for track and field. And then the trophy for most valuable player for softball. And then it happened. The principal gave the most outstanding athlete award, and he announced me. The first time in history that this award went to a girl. I'll never forget the response that was seen by the boys and the parents of those boys. I also look at the courage for the principal to recognize who is the most outstanding athlete. Having the courage to do it. You talk about the evolution of women in sport, girls and women in sport. At that moment, you could see that society started recognizing athletic ability beyond gender. My brother, that same year in high school, got the most outstanding athlete award. So here I go now entering high school. And I played volleyball, basketball, softball, track and field, and tennis for 1 year. You guys know why? You talk about the evolution of women in sport. There, Chris Evert came on the scene. So you had Billie Jean King, Chris Evert, and I'm like, Mom, Dad, can you get me a Chris Evert racket? And it was so funny because my husband and I just found that racket and we have it. And it's so funny, it's wooden. You look at now the rackets in tennis and just the changes that you see in sport. But I went out, the impact that you can make as an individual. And in this case, Chris Evert in sport, just wanted to be like her. So I went out for the team, never playing tennis before, and I made it actually. And I played just 1 year of tennis, but loved it. It was awesome. And so here we are, my senior year. They had just started giving scholarships out a few years earlier for women in sport for college. And so I'm like, I have an opportunity to do something I never thought I'd be able to, which is to go to college and have it all paid for. Because I knew I was going to college, but mom and dad said, we just don't have the money to get you there. So here was my opportunity through sport. And it was through the sport of softball. So I was seen by Kathy Veroni at Western Illinois University, and she was the head field hockey and softball coach at Western Illinois. And I decided to go to Western Illinois to play for Kathy and also to be able to play other sports. So I was asked to play field hockey, never played it before in my life, but I was like, Coach, here I go. Then I played basketball as well. And I also in softball, we came 5th in the country, and I led the nation in hitting with a .480 batting average. And at this time, it was the AIAW, the Association of Intercollegiate Athletics for Women, that governed all women in college. Well, I remember going to Western wanting to be an athletic trainer. And I say this for college, it's student athlete. Get a great education. Experiment with what you feel your passion is and what career you want. And I thought it was athletic training, and Western Illinois had one of the top in the nation. And when I had that semester of athletic training, I also experienced physical therapy, and I was like, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go pre-med. And what gave me an opportunity to be able to transfer over to UCLA was that because when I graduated from high school, I got on a flight and was flown to Colorado Springs, the Olympic Training Center, to try out for the first ever Pan American women's fast pitch softball team for the United States of America. And when I arrived at the tryouts, and here you saw the barracks, you saw this, it was like an Air Force base. That was now the Olympic Committee started to work on it and have created what you see today in Colorado Springs. But back then, it was a humble beginning. And when I arrived to try out for the United States' first ever Pan American team, I was asked to play second base. But I had never played second. But I was going to give it my best. And next thing you know, I made it. I was the youngest starter for the United States Pan American team. We went to San Juan, Puerto Rico, and we won the first ever gold medal at that competition. And I bring that moment up too, because here's a little side note. You know what I remember most, besides obviously competing and winning a gold medal for the United States, was the year the Twix bar came out. It was amazing, you guys. We were at the Village, and we were there when we go to eat. I mean, you have all the sports, all the different countries in the hemisphere that are there competing at the Pan American Games, food, all that you wanted. But here was this amazing box of this chocolate, Twix bars. And I was like, what in the world? And I fell in love with it. We got as much as we wanted. I'm grabbing these cartons and I'm taking them up to these huge skyscrapers that we're staying in for the dorms, if you would, for the competition. But here's something else I remember. The Pan American Games, the way the structure was, it was that it wasn't a double elimination. It was a round robin and then single elimination for the championship. And we were going to play Puerto Rico. But we had already beaten Puerto Rico. We'd beaten them twice. But yet, the winner of this gold medal game would go away with the gold medal. And I'm sitting there across the legends, across the table at lunch with legends in the game. Kathy Strahan and Sue Enquist. And I looked at them. Remember, I'm 17. And these are older women. They have had scholarships to play in college, legends in the game. And I looked at them and said, is it true if we don't win this game, if we lose this game, we don't get the gold medal, even though we've beaten them twice? And they looked at me, just as I'm looking at you, and they said this, never forget it. We're not going to lose. The point is, do you have that drive to be a part of history, to be a part of an evolution, to leave a legacy, to be able to say even a simple phrase that'll impact the future generation? As soon as I heard that, I knew we are not going to lose. And in fact, I knew our destiny was gold. To not think of the negative, to not think of failures and doubts, to be able to overcome them and remove them, that's what it takes to be a champion. So next thing, what happens? When I go to college, oh my gosh, you guys, I loved it at Western Illinois. It was awesome. But I had the opportunity when I went to UCLA to be pre-med. The first year, it was AIAW. And then my second year at UCLA was the first time ever the NCAA recognized women in their organization for college athletics under their banner. And so here at UCLA, elected to be in it, and we played in the first ever NCAA World Series championship in Omaha, Nebraska, and UCLA defeated Fresno State for the first ever championship. You talk about opening doors, evolution in sport. You see through that experience of what's happening that now look where we are today. And a lot of people say, Dot, don't you wish you were playing now? You know what? I wouldn't change a thing. I don't want you to think you ever need to change a thing. The question is, are you impacting others through the gifts that you've been given and the opportunities that you have? And then from the experience at UCLA, getting my degree, to be able to now coach, getting my master's degree paid for through the sport, opening doors of opportunity through sport. It's not just about playing professional. It's not just about getting scholarships. It's about your passion and jobs, work that you can get through the sport to be a part of it, whether it's an athletic trainer, whether it's a physician, whether it's a broadcaster, whether it's working behind the scenes, whatever it might be, opening these doors. Be that person that wants to open those doors for others, that removes the doubts, removes the fears, and go for it. So as I'm coaching for the first time, getting my master's degree, I knew that I was going to be reapplying to get into medical school. I thought that was my destiny. But next thing you know, what happens? I love coaching, loved it. But what happened? I got accepted into medical schools. And at the time too, I knew this is where the passion was leading, to become a surgeon. And I went to medical school, the University of Louisville Medical School. And while there, it was interesting too, that as I walked the hallways and you looked and you saw how many women were actually in healthcare, were in medicine as physicians. And as you saw each year, the graduating classes, you saw more and more women. But it started with a few. Be the few. Be able to make a difference. I share a lot of this, you guys, because of the first Olympics ever, to be a part of that, to live the dream. I am so looking forward to sharing with you how it felt, how all of that came to pass. And I look forward to interviewing other Olympians as well and sharing the experiences from their point of view, from their side and what they saw and what they experienced, because it's worth it. We've got to learn from the past. And in order to do that, we need to learn the best of the past. I remember I just never wanted to wear pants, you guys, uniforms that were pants, because the boys did. I never wanted to wear a helmet. We never did until 1982. We wore helmets. The first ever I wore for the United States in competition at the World Championships in Taiwan. And I remember getting the smallest size possible, extra small, and put it on the crown of my head. Why? Because one, I didn't want to wear a helmet because only boys wore helmets at that point. And the other is it got in the way when I hit a ball. So I just kept it up on the crown of my head. So many things I look at and see the changes and where we are right now and how smart it is to wear a helmet, and how smart it is for uniforms to have pants. But it was funny at UCLA. I remember we got one pair of pants from Pony. I don't know if you remember Pony. And those pants, it was like they were so yellow. I felt like looked like bananas when we were there. But just so many changes, the sponsorship level, all of the exposure through our sport. But through this evolution, let's make sure that we never lose sight of each and every one of us wanting to impact others in such positive ways. Because just like me as a young girl, to be able to see the legends in the games, to be able to see on TV the exposure that women were making to impact young girls to dream and dream big, they were the pioneers in the game. Those were the ones that were playing the sport when they didn't get the support. In my career, I saw that change, was a part of it in the beginning, to where we are today and where the future holds. It's so exciting. Please leave a comment. Let me know about some of the experiences that you had through the years. And as young girls listening to this podcast, don't forget the evolution of some of the names that I talked about in our game, from Joan Joyce and Irene Shea and Sherry Backus, Willie Rose, Kathy Staley, Kathy Strahan, Sue Inquest. I can go on and on. Snooki Mulder, Stephanie Tenney, Mary Lou Cushing. I'm saying these names from Marge Ricker, from Ralph Raymond, Ralph Weekly. I can go on and on just through these players. I even hate to stop because there's so many legends. You can impact others because in the future, you could be that legend. Now make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons, and make sure you share it with everyone. Stay as long as you can to the end of these. I'm excited. I want you to email us, whatever you can, to get word to me about what you want to hear about, what you enjoy, because I love this time to be able to share with you. And I look forward to the next time. God bless each and every one of you.